First story. My 30F sister, 32F, made the worst time of my life even harder. And now my mom, 61F, expects me to apologize. How do I make her understand the pain I'm in? TL, Dr. I, 30F, was sexually assaulted overseas, went through PTSD, and was dealing with a major life upheaval when my sister, 32F, bombarded me with messages. When I asked for space, she exploded, called me horrible names, and dismissed my trauma. I blocked her and haven't spoken to her in over 2 years. My mum, 61F, refuses to take sides and keeps telling me to apologize, but I can't. Her neutrality is deeply hurting me, and I don't know how to make her understand. I'm struggling to explain the depth of this situation to my mom, and her refusal to take sides is hurting me deeply. Here's the background. A few years ago, I was living overseas when I was sexually assaulted by a stranger in my own home in broad daylight. The attack nearly destroyed me. I felt unsafe, dirty, and like I had lost all control over my life. I was living in a country where I barely spoke the language, and the chances of a guilty verdict in cases like mine were slim. Despite this, my attacker was caught, found guilty, and sentenced to prison. While it was a legal victory, the process was long and emotionally exhausting. After the assault, I suffered from severe PTSD, nightmares, and suicidal thoughts. At one point, I even attempted suicide, but I was saved by a police-issued monitoring device. It got so bad that I couldn't live in my home and was temporarily relocated by my employer to secure housing. Eventually, I decided to return home to my own country to try and heal. I landed a job, started packing up my life overseas, and was in the midst of the trial when the fight with my sister happened. The fight. My sister, 33F, and I have always been different, but during this time, she was constantly bombarding me with messages upwards of 50 plus a day asking for advice on a project at work. I told her repeatedly that I wasn't in a good place to help, but she kept pushing, expecting immediate replies, even though I was dealing with so much. PTSD, the trial, my own full-time job, and packing to move halfway across the world. One day, while I was on the phone with our mom, my sister messaged me asking if I'd heard from Mom. I told my sister I was speaking with Mom and would talk to her later. She didn't read the message and jumped to the worst conclusion, that Mom was dead. She sent me a series of frantic messages, and when I responded that she was being dramatic, she exploded. She called me a psychopath, told me to go AskReddit myself, and unleashed a torrent of hurtful accusations, including saying I have zero empathy and that I was belittling her feelings. I tried to explain my headspace, how broken and overwhelmed I was, but she dismissed me entirely, telling me my problems weren't that bad and that she didn't care. I sent voice notes sobbing, begging her to stop, but she refused to listen. I blocked her and haven't spoken to her since. That weekend, I spent 6 hours on a bridge contemplating suicide. If it weren't for a helpline service and the police, I likely wouldn't be here writing this post. The present. It's been over 2 years since I've spoken to my sister. Earlier this year, we were both at my mom's birthday dinner. I was terrified but civil, though my sister and her husband ignored me. At a family event a few days later, I overheard them say I'd been rude at the dinner, which just reinforced that nothing has changed between us. My mom refuses to discuss the fight between my sister and me. She says she doesn't want to get involved, but has repeatedly told me that I should apologize if I want this to end. I've always been the one to extend the olive branch in the past, but this time I can't. My sister made the most painful time of my life even worse, and I nearly didn't survive it. I don't know how to make my mom understand how much her neutrality is hurting me. By refusing to listen or acknowledge what happened, it feels like she's chosen my sister's side by default. We were so close before, but this wedge between us is growing, and I'm scared it's going to break our relationship. If you've made it this far, thank you for reading. I didn't intend for this to be so long, but I'm just so lost. I don't know how to fix things with my mom, and I don't know how to make her understand that her decision not to take sides is breaking my heart. Second story. Divorcing after 17 years, teen daughters are furious with their dad for cheating, but they don't get all the nuances. How to calm the situation down. My husband George and I have been together for 17 years, married for 10. We have 2 daughters. 14 and 16, I got pregnant very early in the relationship, and me and George decided to make it work. We were happy for a while, obviously had another daughter, eventually decided to make it official. We were very happy for a time. We've been drifting apart for years. We've never been a couple prone to arguing or fighting. We're both avoiders. A year or so ago, I realized we were avoiding each other more and more. We've both had mental health struggles, and just managing our daily responsibilities took so much out of us that we didn't have anything left for each other. When we did talk, it was mostly about logistics and kids. We finally had the divorce talk about 10 months ago. We both agreed it was probably the right thing to do, but neither of us was enthusiastic to uproot our whole lives, deal with the financial side of things, or face breaking it to the kids. We talked about whether maybe we can still make it work and fall back in love, whether we should consider marital counseling, etc. Things were left very open-ended. A week later, my father died. We both embraced that as an excuse and agreed to revisit the issue later, but never did. The last year has been tough. I've been mourning my dad and always had the future of our marriage in the back of my mind. But we've pretty much kept operating as if that conversation never happened. We still sleep in the same bed, are intimate a few times a month. At this point, I'm still wondering if we can work things out. I'm asking my friends for contact info for their marital counselors, etc. Well, long story short, my sister-in-law spots him out and about with some other woman and loses her mind, puts him on blast to her whole family, and it gets back to the kids. I'm obviously not thrilled about it, but I'm also not going to act like it's the end of the world when our relationship had deteriorated to essentially roommates with shared children who hook up occasionally. He apologized. We agreed that clearly it's time to separate. He's going to get an apartment, etc. I'm having my own emotions about all of this, and it's rough. Well, the kids won't even speak to him. They're saying once he moves out, they never want to see him again. This is devastating for him and upsetting to me because he's a great dad and a good influence on them. The explanation that I've gone with for both his family and the kids is that the relationship has been essentially over. We've been holding off on divorce while I'm dealing with my dad's estate, but there was no big betrayal here. Most of his family accepted that, along with a reminder that we have kids to worry about, and the only concern in all of this is keeping it friendly and drama-free for their sake. His sister and my kids have not. My older daughter keeps asking if we agreed that it was okay to see other people. I'm not willing to straight up lie to her, so I've just been going with. I'm not going to get into the details of everything and repeating what I said previously, but she keeps parroting her aunt that if we didn't agree to seeing other people, then it's cheating. I don't really know what to do here. I'm not going to lie and say I don't have some level of frustration towards George for jumping into another woman's bed without thinking about what it could do to the kids, or having the courtesy to let me know that things are definitely over, or at least not continuing to be intimate with me. I'm worried about my kids picking up on that emotion from me when I'm trying to present a united front with my soon-to-be ex. I'm frustrated I don't get to process all of this privately because my Sil is a gossip and shit stirrer. I can tell my girls feel incredibly hurt and betrayed, and I can't help but blame myself as well, because clearly we should have put this marriage to rest a long time ago and saved us all this grief. How do I fix this? Third story. I, 26F, may have to accept my relationship with my BF, 30M, will be sexless. I have been with my boyfriend, 30M, for almost 8 years. It has been some pretty good years together. He is my best friend and favorite person in the world. The only part of our relationship that isn't great is sex. Over the years, our sex life has diminished. Nowadays, we are intimate maybe once or twice a year. I know sex isn't the most important part of a relationship, but honestly, I really miss the intimacy and closeness that comes with it. It makes me feel loved and desired, and I really miss having that. I have brought this up to my boyfriend many times over the years. He just tells me nothing is wrong. He wants to have sex with me. He is just either too tired or doesn't want to make the effort. He seems to be content with how things are. At this point, though, I think I need to really consider if I'm okay with how things are and that it may always be this way. I don't want to end the relationship over this. I also don't want to always be unhappy about it. I have no idea what to do. How do I come to terms with this situation? Is there anything else I should try and do? Fourth story. My 29F husband, 27M, says he can't connect with our daughter because he wasn't present at the birth. What I do? I had my daughter 5 months ago. My husband has been distant with our daughter. He doesn't help me with anything related to our daughter. He confessed to me that it's because he doesn't feel that father-daughter connection since he wasn't present at her birth. Well, in the public hospital, they don't let anyone accompany you. You literally go in alone. My birth was really horribly painful, adding that there were 7 other women about to give birth in that room. There were also several medical students who made them do the delay exam. It really wasn't a good experience for me. And now my husband comes up with this nonsense. I don't know what else to do. It's really exhausting having to deal with the baby all day, having to keep the house clean, the food cooked. Fifth story. I, 26F, am engaged to an abusive man, 32M, and I have no idea how to leave. Can anyone help me? First of all, I'm a writer, and a relatively known one at that. Therefore, this is an anonymous account. I say that not to be a braggart, but because once enough money started coming in that we were living beyond comfortably, he decided to quit his horrible job. At first, I didn't have a problem with that. I could pay the bills, I made enough. We are going to circle back to that at the end. First, I want to talk about the relationship. It progressed extremely quickly, and before we knew it, we were spending every day together. I was talking to someone else too, and he knew it at the time. But that person was a little too distant, so I ended up going with my now fiancé. It wasn't long until I moved in, which I know, you shouldn't move in right away. But I can't undo what I've already done. He is obsessed with how skinny I am and body shames me when he feels my stomach isn't toned enough. NSFW warning. He told me the other day I'm not even really a woman and I don't care about his needs because I'm not good at giving blowjobs. Besides this, he used to complain that the house was never clean and he wanted to come home to a clean house. I hired a cleaning lady. He still screams at me that the house isn't good enough. I can't remember the last time I've picked what we watched on TV. I think I only got to pick because my mother was over. Whenever I point out I notice he hasn't been touching me much, he completely stonewalls me, says he's tired of my bitching and will lock himself in a room I can't gain access to. If I try, he shoves me up against the wall. Yesterday it got real bad and I started daydreaming about the life I used to have. He tells me all the time that I'm slur, tells me what to wear, and if I even accidentally interrupt him at a bad time, he will scream at me. He doesn't like being asked questions, so I get told not to ask any. He curses me out blatantly, at least once a day I'd say. Yeah, that's about it. I know you guys are gonna have questions. I have the answers to all of them. But essentially, if I leave, so does all his money, likely his place to live, and everything he's worked for. TLDR. Abusive fiancé financially dependent on me, too afraid to leave but so sick of crying myself to sleep every night and no idea how to go about it. ETA. He is the tenant of the house and technically I am not so. I am in no position to throw him out. Sixth story. I too, 4F, hate myself because my boyfriend 25M is too perfect. Any advice? My BF and I have been dating for 1 year, and I just feel really dumb and pathetic in comparison to him. He is smart, kind, never gets angry, and is really sweet and understanding to me and to everyone he meets. And I'm starting to hate it. I feel like a shitty person for admitting this, but it's been weighing on me recently. When I get emotional, he's calm and understanding. When things are going badly, he focuses on finding a way to fix them. When I do something wrong, he sits us down and helps us understand each other and come to a compromise. He never jokes at anyone's expense. He donates to charity monthly and keeps track of how the charity is using the money. I can keep going. All of that, and he never brags and is always humble. He is perfect, and I feel like a piece of shit just by standing in his vicinity and being an average human being. I would be lying if I said I haven't been remembering previous relationships with other people and remembering seeing them be flawed, getting into stupid fights with them, and then making up and getting closer, and I honestly kind of miss that. Just feeling like I'm in a relationship with an equal who can fuck up just like me. The only aspect where I feel he's not better than me is socializing. He is extremely awkward around strangers, and so I would be there to help smooth out any social interactions we had together since I'm a people's person. But even that doesn't happen often because he's at home most of the time, works online, has a bunch of online friends, and honestly mostly socializes IRL when I'm going somewhere and I invite him. Another aspect of it is that I feel like a child when he's around. When we watch movies and stuff together, I just start talking about what I think of the characters and the plot, and he used to logically disassemble what I said, but without malice, he would just counter everything I said. I explained to him that made me feel dumb, and of course he stopped, but now whenever I say something about a movie, I can see in his eyes that he wants to say something, but he doesn't and just humors me. And it honestly makes me feel pathetic. And it's not just movies, he likes philosophy, politics, and science stuff, and whenever he talks to Emmy about it, it's like he simplifies stuff because I don't know as much as him, but when he's talking to his friends online, he gets really into it. And I know that's not his fault, but like everything else, when I'm around him, it makes me feel like shit. I asked a friend of ours what she thought because she dated him before we met, and she basically told me to get over it and that I shouldn't be wishing my BF was a worse person. I honestly don't know what to do with this. These things used to be green flags I would brag to my friends about, but now they make me feel inferior to him and make me hate myself because I feel bad that my BF is too good of a person. TL, Doctor, my BF is too good of a person, kind, smart, and understanding. And I'm starting to feel inferior in comparison to him. 7th story. I'm exposing the woman my partner cheated on me with. TLDR, I will be outing the woman my partner cheated on me with. She be divorced and deported when I do. So I, 34F, had been with my partner, 35M, for 7 years, and I found out his close female, 33F, friend who gets him like no one else, has been sending him nudes, sexts, begging him for sex, etc., and he's been reciprocating. I wouldn't mind, but she's married and the husband has no idea. They've stayed in a hotel multiple times whilst both lying to my face that nothing was going on, while I'm sat on a mound of evidence that I've just quietly continued to add to by screenshotting anything he had on his phone. I stupidly told my partner I'd forgive him if he gave her up, and he adamantly refused, saying he loved her more than me, but he still wanted both of us. So I've quietly prepared to live without him. Have let him renew the lease at our house with me while I figure my finances out, and I will be outing her as karma. I know where she lives thanks to him buying her sex toys on Amazon. She lives there with her husband's family. The kicker is, she's only able to stay in the country due to being married, and has said she use her husband for the visa and then leave him for my ex. If I tell her husband and her in-laws, he'll divorce her and she have to leave the country for 6 months, a year, and then try and come back on a visa that she can't afford and has been unsuccessful in achieving in the last few years. Her husband funds it at the moment. She'd also end up back in a Muslim country with her parents who would hate her if they knew what she had done, although her dad's currently cheating on her mom, so clearly it runs in the family. I wouldn't even consider doing this, and I would have forgiven her if she hadn't lied to my face. She cried her eyes out when I accused her, said I made her feel like a whore and she'd never abandon her religion or her husband like that. 3 days later, she's having sex with my boyfriend in my bed. I just don't know when to do it. She's back in her home country next month on a trip her husband paid for. I know he'd leave her there and cancel her return flight, but my ex would know it was me who outed her and would leave the house. And I can't afford my home by myself until next year. Or I wait till most of my debts are paid off and I can maintain the house alone and then do it. It would mean waiting nearly a year, but it would stop me from becoming homeless. 8th story. My ex who cheated on me with her trainer just reached out after a year of silence. Now her life is falling apart and she wants me back. Hey everyone, I, 28M, just had a weird situation pop up and I honestly don't know how to process it. Maybe getting it off my chest will help. Names are fake, obviously. A little over a year ago, I was in a serious 3-year relationship with Megan, 27F. Everything seemed great between us, at least from my perspective. We were talking about moving in together and even had casual talks about marriage someday. Around that time, I started getting into fitness and introduced Megan to my personal trainer, Jake, 30M. Jake was a super charismatic guy and he and Megan hit it off. But I didn't think much of it, just assumed they had a good trainer-client relationship. After a few months of them working together, Megan started acting more distant. She'd be busy after her workouts, not come home until late, and her phone would suddenly always be on Do Not Disturb. I'd ask her about it, but she'd blow me off, saying I was being paranoid. Well, turns out I wasn't paranoid. One night, Megan left her phone on the counter while she was showering, and it lit up with texts from Jake. Let's just say they weren't talking about meal plans or workout routines. I confronted her immediately, and she broke down, admitted she'd been cheating with him for months. She told me she fell in love with Jake and that it wasn't about me, it was just something she couldn't help. She packed her things and moved in with him within a week. That was the worst time of my life. It felt like my entire world had been ripped apart. I blocked her on everything and focused on picking up the pieces of my life. Therapy gym, hanging with friends, I slowly started to move on, even though it left a deep scar. Then, out of the blue, a few days ago, she reached out to me on a new number. At first, I wasn't going to reply, but curiosity got the better of me. She started off saying she missed me, that she's sorry for everything, and that she's made a huge mistake. Apparently, things with Jake went downhill fast. She found out he was cheating on her. Oh, the irony. They've broken up, and now she's stuck, lonely, and miserable. She even admitted she's been thinking about me for months, but was too ashamed to reach out sooner. She said she realizes what she had with me was real and that she wants to make things right. She claims she's willing to do anything to prove she's changed and asked if we could meet up to talk. Here's the thing, Reddit. Part of me still has some feelings for her, but another part of me is screaming to block her again and never look back. I don't know if I can ever trust her after what she did, but hearing her sound so broken on the phone stirred something up in me. Maybe it's pity, maybe it's nostalgia, or maybe I'm just an idiot. So here I am, trying to figure out if I should hear her out or tell her to stay in the past where she belongs. What would you guys do? 9th story. My 39-year-old wife cheated with someone almost twice her age. I'm honestly just putting this out there. My wife, 39YO, of nearly 15 years, who I, 46 meters, utterly adore beyond words, came to me about a month ago to talk. She's friends with a neighbor, and they become closer as the friendship grows. She came to me to admit that they had kissed. I was absolutely floored, but I wanted to talk through it. She discussed concerns she had never mentioned before, love language, communication issues, etc. I told her I would work on things with her if she would. She started crying, saying she would like to do that. For the following month, I ensured I was working on the concerns she mentioned, but she kept getting more distant. I finally asked her what was wrong, and she said that since she stopped talking to this neighbor, she realized she had developed feelings for him and wasn't sure she wanted to be married anymore. Naturally, I felt that my world had imploded and asked if we could do counseling. We've been together for almost 20 years, and as recently as 6 weeks ago, she was very lovey-dovey, and everything was okay. On the day of the counseling session, she took off her ring and said she had met with a lawyer. She suggested that I do the same because she loved me but wasn't in love with me anymore and she wanted a divorce. I've bawled almost daily for this entire time while she acts like everything was okay and it's business as usual. She asked that we stay civil and respectful in front of our children, fearing they wouldn't understand. I've asked why several times and always get a different reason: money, intimacy, communication, etc. She married young, so it feels like she wants to experience that single life since she's almost 40 and has never had to do so. She says she wants to be alone and stand on her own 2 feet. I've gotten a lot of the cliches. I love you, but I'm not in love with you. I need to find me. You're a great dad and husband. Maybe we can be friends down the road. I can't promise you how I'll feel in a year, so if you find happiness, you should take it. If you let go of the relationship and it comes back, it's true love. Honestly, I feel beyond broken. I feel discarded like old chewing gum. And the brutal part is that I still absolutely love and adore her, even though she has decided I'm not worth it anymore. The mental health toll has been tremendous. I've bawled daily while she seems unaffected and refers to it as tension in the house. Anyway, I just figured I'd put this out there. Thanks for reading. I'm exposing the woman my partner cheated on me with. TLDR. I will be outing the woman my partner cheated on me with. she be divorced and deported when I do. So I, 34F, had been with my partner, 35M, for 7 years, and I found out his close female, 33F, friend who gets him like no one else, has been sending him nudes, sexts, begging him for sex, etc., and he's been reciprocating. I wouldn't mind, but she's married and the husband has no idea. They've stayed in a hotel multiple times whilst both lying to my face that nothing was going on, while I'm sat on a mound of evidence that I've just quietly continued to add to by screenshotting anything he had on his phone. I stupidly told my partner I'd forgive him if he gave her up, and he adamantly refused, saying he loved her more than me, but he still wanted both of us. So I've quietly prepared to live without him, have let him renew the lease at our house with me while I figure my finances out, and I will be outing her as karma. I know where she lives thanks to him buying her sex toys on Amazon. She lives there with her husband's family. The kicker is, she's only able to stay in the country due to being married, and has said she use her husband for the visa and then leave him for my ex. If I tell her husband and her in-laws, he'll divorce her and she have to leave the country for 6 months, a year, and then try and come back on a visa that she can't afford and has been unsuccessful in achieving in the last few years. Her husband funds it at the moment. She'd also end up back in a Muslim country with her parents who would hate her if they knew what she had done, although her dad's currently cheating on her mom, so clearly it runs in the family. I wouldn't even consider doing this, and I would have forgiven her if she hadn't lied to my face. She cried her eyes out when I accused her, said I made her feel like a whore and she'd never abandon her religion or her husband like that. 3 days later, she's having sex with my boyfriend in my bed. I just don't know when to do it. She's back in her home country next month on a trip her husband paid for. I know he'd leave her there and cancel her return flight, but my ex would know it was me who outed her and would leave the house, and I can't afford my home by myself until next year. Or I wait till most of my debts are paid off and I can maintain the house alone and then do it. It would mean waiting nearly a year, but it would stop me from becoming homeless. 10th story. I 40 meters found a bag in my fiance's 36F car. It had only things in there that would be used for sex. Do I tell her what I found? As the title says, I found a bag in my fiance's car that had some of our sex toys, which I know about, lingerie I know about, massage oil I've never seen. It's a pretty new bottle, but has been used, and a 3/4 empty can of whipped cream. We have never used massage oil together. We have never used whipped cream either. I've never seen her eat whipped cream or ever seen it in the house before. I have the obvious suspicions that she is or had an affair, and these things were used in that encounter. I'm trying to think of some rational reason that stuff would be in there, but I can't. The bag was used when we went out for a weekend on my birthday 2 months ago or so. The toys and lingerie were in there. I don't remember seeing the massage oil, though. And there was certainly no whipped cream, but she takes this bag when she works as an overnight nanny in a town about an hour or so from our home. I know she does nanny on the side. She's been doing it for years off and on. But I can't shake the suspicion of an affair. And I feel like any rational and reasonable person would have questions about this. Is this questionable behavior? Please help. 11th story. Went through her phone last night, 25F and 28F. Do I tell her what I found? I'm 25F at work today, still shaking from last night. I went through her phone while she was asleep. 28F. I don't know where to go from here. I really trusted her overall and only had tiny doubts. I've been lied to in a relationship before and I regretted blindly trusting in the past, so I looked through a partner's phone for the first time in my life last night. I'll list the things that I saw in order. Her best friend and her making fun of a heartfelt text I sent when we were having issues, calling me a bitch. That same best friend making fun of my appearance and her laughing. A screenshot of her flirting with this guy on Instagram and her asking for him to fly her out to see him. I checked Instagram and there was flirting going back to when we first started dating. They had previously been together. It could be a joke, but he was also liking thirst traps that she posted on her close friends and calling her sexy. Her saying he wants me so bad about her roommate's boyfriend, who she had slept with before in a threesome with her roommate. I have reasons to be suspicious of them sleeping together recently. I had a panic attack last night and didn't get any sleep. I will be reading and responding to every reply. I don't know how to deal with this. Do I tell her what I saw? M31 proposal to girlfriend F34 of 2 years gone horribly. Need advice? Proposal to girlfriend of 2 years gone horribly. Hi, I 31 meters proposed to my girlfriend 34F of 2 years recently. We were on holiday and I did it in the morning on our balcony with a great view. She had picked out a ring about 2 months earlier, so she knew it was coming. So I got on one knee, asked her to marry me, and she was delighted and said yes. We then sat down and had breakfast on the balcony that I made. The problem started about 10 minutes later when she asked me when did I go see her mother about it. Father not in her life. Mother lives 3-hour drive away. I said I didn't get an opportunity to visit in person. The ring only arrived a few days before the holiday. So I called her and asked for her blessing over the phone, which her mother gave. This then led to my girlfriend to spend the rest of the day hysterically crying and giving out to me saying I should have met her mother in person, just to be fair. She did mention I do it in person before, but it was so bad she ended up giving me the ring back and said to do it again another time. The following few days were the same, crying and giving out to me basically for not doing it right. I honestly thought afterwards, how can we not be engaged over what is to me a minor issue? And to be honest, I'm really thinking about telling her I don't think I can propose again, which I know she would leave me as she is obsessed with getting married. Any advice on what you think? I just can't figure this out. I feel embarrassed and honestly very hurt that having a perfect proposal supersedes being engaged to me.